Good afternoon. This is Chuck Cameron with Oxford Community TV. Today on My Life, we have a real treat. I'm sitting here with our fire chief, Pete Scholz. Pete, thank you for joining us today. It's a real pleasure.
Oh, the pleasure is all mine. I'm grateful that you're interested in what I do, where I've been. I don't consider it that flashy or exciting of a life, but I'm willing to share it. Thank you.
Sure. Could we start by figuring out what you're up to today? What are your responsibilities? What's your role? Tell us a little bit about the operation here, and then go back and try to figure out the factors that help Pete get to be the man he is today.
Sure. Currently, as you mentioned before, I am the fire chief for the Oxford Fire Department. The Oxford Fire Department covers all 36 square miles of Oxford Township, which includes the village of Oxford, which is located in the center of it. I'm also the emergency manager for the village of Oxford and for the township of Oxford in case of whatever emergencies, whether it be something from the weather related or storm related or anything to that degree. We currently have 23 full-time career firefighter paramedics, and we also have 22 paid on call / part-time firefighter EMTs that are on our department. I've been with the fire department now since 1976.
Really?
When I joined as a young person, got involved by watching one of my friends who was on the department at the time, and he was explaining to me the things that they were able to do, how gratification he was and everything because of how you got to help people save lives, doing those sort of things, and piqued my interest in it. So I checked into it to join. I talked to at the time was Chief Dale Spiker, who just passed away here within a month ago. So it's so sad to see him pass by. But anyway, he was a great leader, a great mentor, and he brought me in. We talked and welcomed me out of the department. Well, that was in the beginning of January of 1976. From there, I was on the department about a month, and then in March came along and we had the first ice storm. And that ice storm that year knocked everything out for probably close to a week that we had no power here in the Oxford community. Wires down all over the place. Nowhere near the development that we have here today, so it was a lot more rural. And my first fire that I went to, again, as we rolled up onto it, with a barn that was involved on the corner of Crawford Street and South Washington Street. But the power line was laying on the barn and also laying on the fence in between the neighbor's house. The entire thing was charged with electricity and sat there and arcing and sparking the entire time. So we pull up and pull the hoses off, and then we stand there. And it's like, wow, this is how we fight fires? Not what I expected. So after waiting for probably an hour and a half for Detroit Edison to finally get there and shut the power off, and then at that time watching the building burn close to the ground is kind of, this is really not what I thought we were getting into. And then that rolled into roughly 4 days of nonstop of down wires. We had some other structure fires during that time, and grew on from there then.
Welcome to the fire department.
Absolutely.
Wow, that's amazing. That's quite a start. Let's take a look back behind these days to when you were growing up. Could you tell us a little bit about where home was and what it was like in your home?
Sure. I was born and raised up until I was probably in the second grade. We lived in Lake Orion, and I lived in one of the houses that was at the time Keatington Antique Village. Well, this was before Keatington had bought it, and I lived in the southernmost house. My grandparents lived at the northernmost house. And the reason we were there and what it was when it was the Scripps estate, my grandfather was the supervisor over the entire Scripps farm at that time. And then my father worked on the farm also, and he had in charge of all the pigs and the sheep that they had at that time. Big, huge barns used to be over on the Baldwin and Walden Road area where all Keatington subdivision is now. And that's where I grew up till I was at the end of second grade, and then we moved to Oxford on Baldwin Road, just north of Sherwood Road. And then from there I attended Clear Lake School for grade school, at again, Clear Lake School at that time was only 6 classrooms is all there was with the gymnasium. That was, there was no office, there was no anything at that time.
Things have changed a bit.
Things have changed a little bit compared to that, looking what that school is now. We lived out on there. We had a small farm. We always raised our own everything. We had our own garden. We had our own, raised a couple of sheep. So we always had lamb to eat. We always had a beef cow. So we always had meat to eat from there. We always had our own pork, rabbits. Everything we had, you had to be able to eat because you lived on a farm there. And from there, I attended Oxford schools all the way through till graduation. Graduated from high school in 1971. Funny thing, I went to, at the time, our junior high school, which would have been 7th and 8th grade. And at that time, I attended the junior high school, which is actually located, or was located, right here, currently on this site here at the corner of Church and North Washington Street. And as things evolve, there's always kind of a weird thing with your life, that in the 80s, when this building or the school actually burned, I was on the fire department at that time and stood with the fire truck at the hydrant right there at the corner of Church Street and Washington Street, and I spent 8 hours that night running the pump or on the engine, while they were fighting the fire right here on this exact same spot.
It's easy to think that sometimes life goes in circles.
Yes, it does.
Remarkable.
Yes, it does.
Now, did you have any brothers and sisters?
I do. I have a sister that's younger than I am, lives still in the Waterford area, and I have a brother that's in California, and I have a sister that lives here locally in Oxford at Independence Village.
Got it. Now, were there people in your childhood that were a positive influence on you?
It would, and I would say going back to when I was very young, just after we first moved here, there was a farmer that lived down the road from us. He used to live right there at the corner of Seymour Lake Road and Malden Road. And it was a large, 80-acre farm that was right there in the corner. And I would go down because my dad used to help out the local farmers and work with them. And of course, I got to tag along. And, I learned how to basically do everything on the farm with them at that time. I remember when they put me on a tractor when I was 9 years old, all I had to do was steer, but they were out, picking up hay and straw and, working in the fields like that. And helping the farmer, he had cows, so I was learning how to milk the cows, doing all that when I was, 9, 10, 11 years old, working with them. And then the other farmer that used to live down the road from us, I used to help him and travel around with him. So by the time I was 12 years old, I was working with the farmers, driving the tractors, so then they would, the one farmer would go around to neighbors with this combining their grain. And we traveled all over Oxford, Addison Township, Brandon Township, and I would be gone for 12 hours a day in the summertime as a 12-year-old, driving tractor and wagon from way out from Hosner Road out in Addison Township to Sherwood Road or, Woolley Road over in Brandon Township, and driving tractors and wagons by myself into town
On the roads.
to when the 2 elevators used to be there on Pleasant Street, when it was Cam's Feeding Grain and or the co-op there hauling grain back and forth. And I did that for, 2, 3 years. Sure. And from there, I started working my junior year of high school, working for Fred Wells Landscaping. And there I got the interest in landscaping and working outside, and I worked all the way through high school doing that, and then that what kind of led me to say, I think I want to do this. And I went to Michigan State for a 2-year to get an associate's degree in landscape and nursery management.
Excellent.
And I worked landscape off and on then for the next quite a few years. And then from there I moved over into, a friend of mine at the time was involved with golf course management. And I enjoyed being outside and talked to him and saw it was. And it's like, wow, I can do this. And so then I got hired in 1976 at a golf course over in Romeo at Pine Valley Golf Course. And so then from there I worked at Pine Valley Golf Course. From there I went to Oxford Hills Golf Course, then to Indianwood Country Club. I did all the renovations on the old course at Indianwood.
So your life is outside so far.
Yes.
You got that. And what a great way to grow up. A lot of work.
Yes.
And a lot of fun. We're going to take a break, and we will be back in a little bit. We'll talk with Pete a little bit more of his life. Stay tuned. Thank you.
when the world's endangered animals need help most, when their lives are at greatest risk, when they would otherwise be lost. The International Fund for Animal Welfare is there, taking action to rescue the animals we love, to protect them and their threatened natural habitats. But the danger to animals the world over is growing, and the need for your help has never been more urgent. On land, you'll help stop poachers from threatening and killing elephants and big cats for the illegal wildlife trade. In the oceans, you'll help rescue dolphins, whales, and seals from deadly hazards. And you'll help rescue, rehabilitate, and release vulnerable animals when disasters strike. Here at home and around the world, we can't do this work without you. See how you can help animals and people thrive together at joinifall.org.
Hi, Chuck Cameron, back with the My Life program for Oxford TV and with Pete Scholz. We're sitting in the fire station. I didn't mention that in the beginning, but it might be obvious to the folks watching us. Quite a place. And the amazing thing for me, as you said, you were sitting outside putting out the fire in the school building right at this spot.
Absolutely, right at this very spot.
It's amazing. So when we talked a minute ago, you had gotten through school, you did a lot of outside work, you were getting involved in community stuff and golf course work and stuff like that. Take us from there. What was like as a young man? Do you have a family at that point? What were you doing? Were there people in your life that were influential to you at the time?
There was at that time. I mentioned that I had started working for that Fred Wells Landscape when I was still in high school. Great influence on me, very, very hard worker, very honest person, very dedicated to the industry, the landscape industry. Taught a lot, was very involved, very hands-on kind of a guy like that, and definitely made a big difference on my life, looking at that part of it. And then from there, once I joined the fire department here, at the time, Chief Dale Spiker, Assistant Chief Jim Craig were tremendous mentors to work with me as a young guy, plus a leadership to the department. The work ethic that those two gentlemen had, because at the time, 100% of us were all paid on call / volunteer. There was nobody full-time at the department, so we all had full-time jobs elsewhere from all walks of life. Sure. And everybody would come home here to the fire department in the afternoon and spend 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day at the station, maintaining the trucks. We did our training during that time, whatever. Plus it was all time for camaraderie and sit around and talk. And, there was always the talks of bygone years of the big fires that they had and knowledge. And you just kind of, like a sponge took all that in. And as we progressed, then they were the leaders towards, and then that was when Jack Leroy joined the department, who was the former police chief for the village at that time. He came in, got involved right away with it, worked up to the thing, and so then when finally Dale Spiker had retired, we had another interim fire chief for a short period of time, and then Jack Leroy became full-time chief. And again, the dedication of those gentlemen, from giving all that they had to maintain the department, with most of the time nobody got paid for it, or all we just did it as what you did. Complete from working on the trucks to painting on the trucks and little tiny nicks and scratches, to building out the inside of the fire hall, because at the time it was just an empty shell of the building that we used to be in. All that work was done by ourselves or with our own hands. So it gave you a great ownership, a great part of the community. And we worked towards that in the future. Then when it came time in the 90s, then it was time to start hiring full-time people, and worked up to the point that when the economy was doing good, the community was growing good. So then in 2002, the township voters all passed a millage to build this station here on North Washington Street, and also the Station 2 that we have on West Drainer. And then at that time also, then we purchased a new aerial truck, a heavy rescue truck, an engine, a tanker, and a brush truck, and an ambulance that we got at that time. And again, it was because based on the taxpayers, all the confidence in us, and understood the growth that was coming, and it was great. The community has been very much behind us.
So when I'm thinking 2002 isn't that long ago.
Correct.
And before
Well,
that,
it wasn't that long ago, but when you look back to today, that's 20 years.
yeah, that's 20 years. When I think back, none of this existed. The building, all these beautiful vehicles and stuff like that, you were dealing with whatever you had. And because the voters were willing to vote to take money out of their pockets,
Yes.
they have far more service than they ever would have had before. So
Correct.
everything has a cost, and everything has a real benefit. Excellent. Great. Now, do you have a family?
I do. Married to my wife, Wendy.
Yep.
I have two stepdaughters, Dominique and Raquel.
Yeah.
Dominique has three sons, so I have three, grandsons. My younger daughter, Jordan. Jordan graduated from Oxford in 2008, and all of them are all successful in their own careers right now, too.
Excellent. So you get to be a dad and a grandpa and
Absolutely.
a fire chief and a mentor, and
Yes.
other than that, you just sit around doing nothing.
Not very often. And it's fun, too, because my grandson's just, finishing. My youngest grandson now is a senior at the Oxford High School right now, finishing up this year, which has been quite a trial. But at the same time, it's like I've been involved since I've been in the schools long before they were ever in the schools. So it's, you're walking around at any time to be able to point out to them to say, that's my grandson running over there, or them to be able to come running up to you in the middle of the hallway and, Grampy, how you doing? So it's been great.
It's good stuff. Do you ever get out of town? I mean, you live locally and such things like that. Do you ever go away on vacation? Does your family ever get away?
Limited. Because over the years I worked landscape and I worked the golf course for so many years.
Right.
Well, all that work has to take place in most of the summertime, right? So when it's nice warm weather, when everybody else is going to the beach and traveling up north, well, I'm here stuck, because the grass still grows on Sundays, as my wife would bemoan the fact of that. So there wasn't a whole lot of travel time and everything involved during that time. But as we've moved along now and I'm with this career, then it actually gives me a little bit more time to be able to start traveling and getting away and seeing things.
Have you been any places that you enjoyed?
The latest was at Christmas time. We took our first real vacation that we've ever had the entire time. And we took a week with my daughter and her boyfriend, and we traveled to the Dominican Republic, and we spent Christmas in Dominican Republic. So on Christmas Day, it was 85 degrees, laying by the pool in the morning, very nice.
It sounds like it would be wonderful. A good time.
Yes.
All right. So you've got children and a career, and you love what you're doing here. What's your role here as far as training young people? I imagine your teams need a lot of help to get trained to do the things they have to do. Tell us a little bit about what it used to be for training, and then bring us up to speed on the kind of work that you have to do to train your teams today.
Sure. It started when I first started as a firefighter. There was no real organized training, quote, per se. Came on to the fire department, and they gave you, a set of boots and a coat and said, here, this is it. Show up at the next call.
Yep.
That's how it started. And after I was on the department for probably 2 years, was the first fire class that came down from Lansing that we were able to attend, and I attended that class. It was 66 hours long, and that was all that there was for firefighting at that time, was a 66-hour class. And that has now evolved to a 212-hour class of fire, which includes hazardous materials. It includes incident command. It includes driver's training. It includes radios, communications. All that is all involved now. The department has grown so much now that I have my department officers now that handle all of the training. The biggest thing is for them to keep organizing, that they now have to be connected through the state of Michigan to the Firefighters Training Council, which regulates all that now. The state recently has now mandated now that we have to start having continuing ed in fire training also, which again continues to be more training and training. That's all the time now.
Train. When we come back, I want to talk to you a little bit about the fact that your teams, from what you told me earlier, are not only involved in firefighting, but also are very involved in in ambulance and taking care of people
Yes.
and first aid and stuff like that. So if you'll stay with us, we'll be back with you in just a minute.
Media?
Many kids think vaping is harmless, but it's not.
So talk to your kids about the risks of vaping, because when you talk, they hear you.
We're back at the fire hall, which I'm glad to say is very quiet.
Yes.
There's nothing going on out there that requires these trucks to move. So so far we're good, right?
Yeah, that's unusual because normally one of these would be moving in and out here quite often. So
All right.
that's
Well,
been
then
great.
I'll get finished so you can get on with your job. All
Very
right?
good.
You told me earlier that your teams not only have to worry about putting out fires, but there's a whole medical aspect of that for the Oxford Fire Department. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. When I first joined the fire department back in 1976, again, at that point it was, a fire, you go out, you put out the fire, that's the extent of it, not realizing what all is involved in the fire services. As time has evolved around, it has now come to the point that the fire departments, mostly across the state, across the country now, are the ones that are actually now providing medical care. Our fire department, we require them to all be EMTs, and then our full-time staff all have to be paramedics. We are a full advanced life support transporting fire department, so we respond to whatever the call is, wherever it is, treat the patient, and then we in turn then transport to hospital of choice or the hospital as far as what the best care for that incident is. Countless hours of training that are involved in the EMS part of it, because that is changing on a daily, all the time compared to what we used to do years ago. I mean, starting out with CPR, when basically it was just, push, kind of live it. Now it's, and breathe as fast as you can. And now it's like you don't even hardly give any breaths at all, and you're just doing compressions as fast as you can give them. The technology that we have now, we actually have machines that do the CPR for you. We've got heart monitors that can monitor everything and actually forecast and send it immediately to the hospital, so a doctor sits in the ER and knows exactly what we're doing, as far as on the call, and they have that information before they get there. That drives the majority of our calls now. Last year we finished up the year with 2,200 calls. Of the 2,200 calls, 1,800 of them were all medical related. So the fire aspect of it is actually very small. Most of it is all medical. And the fire calls, it seems like they are dwindling, and a lot of it is coming down to fire prevention that we work with the children in the communities, to even the inspections that we do on all the commercial businesses. We go in and actually do inspections. We're not there to be the hard guy coming in to get after them and make them spend money, but it's all about life safety is why we do it. And at the same time, it's protecting your structure, your business, to keep you in business, to keep your employees employed. And that's why we're out there, calling out instances why your exit light's burned out, your emergency light needs to be replaced, your fire extinguishers are out of date. Simple things like that, or smoke detectors, whatever. But it saves property, it saves lives, and obviously you can take our fire count from over the years is definitely slowly going down.
So if you and your team answered over 2,200 calls last year,
Yes.
which is a lot, how would that roughly compare to the number of calls that you were answering, fire calls, back when you started? Any idea?
The first year in 1976, we had 75 calls. And actually for them at that time, that was a huge year because, as I mentioned, they had that ice storm that year. Right. Well, that ice storm alone gave them probably 30 calls. So it was just, that's how much it's evolved since then. The fire aspect of it too has changed so much over the years. Like I said, we've added all the medical services. Now it's involved with hazardous materials. If a power line goes down from a storm, who are they going to call? It's the fire department that goes out there. Someone thinks they smell smoke, whether it is actually smoke or it could be an odor of natural gas, or you need to come out and check this right away. It's really scary. I can smell gas, and get out there and, oh, by the way, it was a skunk in the backyard. Yep. To a car in a car accident, to just about any kind of emergency is what they call the fire department to come out there to check it out.
Now, you said in addition to all the work that you and your teams do here, also you're involved in the community. Tell me a little bit about that, would you?
I've been involved now for probably 10, almost 12 years now with the Oxford Downtown Development Authority.
Excellent.
Served in multiple positions on there. I've been chairman of it for probably at least 6 years during my time. The biggest aspect I would say of it that I take the most pride in, and I think, I hope I helped the community, was when the M24 project was coming through town. I sat on the task force for the whole redesign of the downtown Oxford streetscape project and everything, and that included from tree plantings to benches to sidewalks to design of some of the curbing and everything, and that was all part of the task force. And I spent a lot of time on that, and I think everybody's proud to see what the final outcome has come from that.
Well, the town sure looks good.
Yes, it does.
We've been here 18 years, and it's had a terrific upgrade visually. It's just a lovely place to walk. And
Yes.
it's just good stuff.
Businesses are starting to, there's very few vacancies downtown now, and there's actually a waiting list, people looking for properties to move into. There's quite a few new properties that are going to be opening here in the next year, so it's exciting.
That's good. So you've had an amazing career here. You told me that this December will be your wrap-up for being the fire chief here.
Yes.
Is that correct?
That is absolutely right. My contract is up at the end of December, and at that point then I will be retiring after all this time.
So what's up in the life of Pete Scholz after that? What are you thinking? What do you want to do?
It's open right now. I think the first month or two it's going to be in the middle of winter time anyhow, but I think it's going to be a time to relax, to unwind a little bit. After being always on the jitter, kind of a go, it's going to be a time, it's going to take me a while to settle down and to unwind. I know my wife's got quite a long, lengthy list of projects that she thinks I've been missing around the home that I need to do. I know my family, my daughter has definitely got projects that she thinks that dad should be doing all the time, so there's going to be a lot of that going on. I spent all those years working on a golf course and yet never played hardly at all. So now I plan to hopefully get out and swing the club a little bit and enjoy life.
So what I'm hearing is you have lots of opportunities. You have at least several people who are willing to give you long and exhaustive lists of things
yes.
to keep you busy so you don't get bored.
Won't be any of that.
Do you expect that you would continue to have some role in the town as far as Oxford community activities?
I don't know. Everything with the fire department will be done at that time. I'm still on the DDA for another 3-year term. After that, I'm not quite sure what I'll do or where it'll take me.
Well, I'm pretty sure that you will find lots to use your skills and talents and your connections with people
Yes.
in ways that keep you a part of this community for a long time. I want to thank you very much.
Oh, it's been enjoyable.
Thank you we hope that the folks who are watching the My Life programs enjoy time with Pete and look in from the fire department. You said in October there's an open house?
Yes, we always have it on the first Sunday in October.
Excellent.
And that's when all the equipment is displayed and all kinds of activities going on for the children, and it's a great time for the children all the way up to the grandparents to come out and get your picture taken in a fire truck and
Excellent.
play with the things. So.
Well, that's one to keep on your list. Open house, the Oxford Fire Department, early October. But for now, this is Chuck Cameron thanking Pete Scholz and saying goodbye for the My Life program today. Have a good day.
Thank you.